First of all, very good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
I thank the foundation, 𝐶𝐚𝐺 Foundation, of course, EduBrisk and my friend Kamala. And gives us this opportunity to essentially exchange shared thoughts. I look at this session as a sharing of thoughts, not essentially giving one-way speaks. Before I comment on what I wish to come here for, I should share with you a personal anecdote with Mr. C. Subramaniam. He used to be the governor of Maharashtra. He was the man behind green revolution in this country. In later days, I became a friend of his. I was old man, so I was his ears and eyes for Indian science. One day he came back from US trip. I was at that time close to 90. Very early in the morning, he sent for me and said, "You come here at 10 o'clock. By the time I even got out of the jet lag. And he said, "Hey Ramasami, in the name of equity, we built excellence in education in this country. I went to US, I'm running a program, Gifted Children. Can you do something like that in this country?" His wife was interested in throwing me out as soon as possible because she wanted rest. She came and said, "Hey Baba, get out of this place quickly." So I come back 2 days. Why 2 days? I need some time. 2 days later, I went with the program, and we used to run a program for gifted children in Madras. And I was a director of the Research Institute here. And we used to bring 25 children from the two schools, Bharati Vidya Bhavan and Chinmaya Foundation systems. And 5 teachers. And every 3 months. And we ran a program for the people here. I want to tell you that near about 13 of them had become scientists in the world. And there's one 𝐓𝐡𝐞 Saiju who came from one of your foundation schools. I thought I should share this anecdote with you because it connects you to the event that you are building up. Of course, my friend sent me what this program is all about. And essentially, the focus is the cognitive neuroscience of the education learning process. Is something that he's really investing upon, investing energy and effort in the process. And as I'm a 78-year-old man, so I have this old man syndrome. You look at the purpose of education. When you talk about education, the process, I think it is preferable to understand the purpose of education. Education learning process truly was considered a part of the civilizational aspect of a culture. No. Somehow, the Indian civilizations differentiate the purpose of education as one of revealing internal perfection in a human being. And Swami Vivekananda said every born soul is a perfect soul. And education reveals the internal perfection to oneself. So, in our generation, when I was in school, my grandfather would say self-realization is the purpose of education. It's a process. Of course, in the post-industrial revolution, everything got connected to the economy. Education also got connected to the economy. So, the standard of living got a priority over quality of life. And Western education models, if you go to Cdr Saiju Aravind, they talk about Cdr Saiju, you say man is born lawless, and education makes him law-abiding. Primarily, education became a tool for the governments to make the citizens follow what they want to do. And this is the reality for the Western model of education, the purpose. Purpose of education, as far as the Indian civilization is concerned, there is no flaw in it. It's a great process. The process of education that we had adopted at that time, or Gurukul, was completely non-exclusive. It is essentially non-inclusive, exclusive. So one teacher can deal with only 5 students, 1 to 5. So it was not scalable. Gurukul model was not scalable. The model that the Western world adopted, the process, was scalable. It can reach larger number of people. Somewhere along the line, we need to cleverly bring the purpose of ancient Eastern model and the processes of the Western tools and manage the education process without compromising on the purpose. Unfortunately, the purpose cannot become making a man law-abiding. That cannot become the goal of education. There is something called standards of education, but not standardization. We are trying to standardize, but it is not individual, it cannot be lost. This is not my word, it is Tagore. In the name of, you have to unify thinking, but may not make it uniform. Uniformity is not advisable. Unfortunately, we tend to spend too much time on the uniformity of models rather than the value of education itself. I am going to share with you some anecdotes so that there is some reality of what I speak. I came back with a PhD in England at the age of 27, 28. I went to the classroom, BTech guys. I was teaching analytical chemistry. As a researcher, I was always interested in new understanding. Everything I have to understand new. Even if it's Gita, I have to understand it in my own ways. That's the spirit of a researcher. So I went and taught this BTech class. The difference between B-type electrode and C-type glass electrode, which is not known to analytical chemists at that time. And this was B-type other technology doesn't need. So it was a teacher-centric education model, where I was getting the best of knowledge available at that time, without asking whether they needed it. Therefore, I failed as a teacher, because the researcher in me was louder than the teacher in me. Then I went back again. I went to US and came back. Some maturity happened in life. Then I decided, at that time when I was teaching, my English used to be high flow. So super fast. And flow of English was very high. So all my lectures went above the heads of students. And head and hit walls. And I don't think the students benefited by it. This is my admission today. Then after a few years when I came back, I went to the US again, came back. And 36. Then I realized, as a teacher, your focus must be learning, not teaching. The learning has to take place in the mind of the learner. Teaching is external, learning is internal. The learning has to happen in the mind of the individual. So what is my job is to inspire them to learn. My job is to inspire every individual in the class to learn. and I was a better teacher. But then I had become a director of the other institute. I was still teaching the course. But the researcher in me was nagging. Because I felt the teaching models that we are adopting is primarily Western. Because we build ability into reductionism. We take a module, syllabus, 5 course curriculum, there will be every subject of 5 modules, 4 sub-elements each, 20 sub-elements we will teach individually. So you take A, B, C, D, E, F, all that we teach. And hoping the student to learn this individual's reduction process and integrate it in the process. I said, this may be necessary for the Western cultural setting. After the Indians are set for laterality. So why don't I do an experiment in our university course? What I did was, I took a syllabus, 5 modules, 27 elements. Every day, first day, I introduce all the 20 sub-elements into one phenomenon. In one phenomenon, how all the 20 sub-elements are necessary to understand the subject. And then every day, I will increase the depth of each sub-element. But every day, one phenomenon is taught in 10 credit hours. And every 10 credit hours, the whole subject is taught in integrated laterality. And every day, one student will summarize what I taught the previous class. Now I take chocolate. Depending on the quality of the summary, they will get 2 to 5 chocolates. And other students are encouraged to find the errors in the summary. Each student will get a chocolate if they found an error. And then the fourth phenomenon, because I had 40 credit hours, 30 credit hours went to 3 phenomena. Fourth, student will teach first, I will teach later, and others will find the difference. In this model, there is the one experiment I have tried that I thought I'll share it with you today. Because all of you are leaders of education processes. I thought I'll seed this thought with you. In my class, if I taught a course and somebody got 80%, for a subject I examined the exam and I corrected myself, they'll walk away with 1 praise books. For the 22 years of teaching that I have had, 3 girl children have taken the praise books away. 80% plus. Getting 80% from me was not easy. It turned out when I taught this course in this laterality, the toppers used to be between 72 to 80. When I taught this course in lateral thinking process, 32% of the class was in that bracket, not one individual. What it conveys to me is that there's a certain laterality quotient, thinking process embedded in the learning process in our cultural setting, in our DNAs. Okay? Therefore, let us not waste our DNA in this reductionism-based learning schools. However, then I went to Rama went to Vanavasam for 14 years. I went to Delhi Vasam for 8 years. And I came back after being secretary for some time and tried to teach a course. Same course, same college. Within 10 years, everything had changed in this country. I can't believe 10 years is like a yuga. Because the attention span of each one of these kids is 10 to 15 minutes. Therefore, you can't do this module. Now I had to teach myself better than these guys. So what I did, I changed the model. I realized that all of them believe in that laptop or the phone they have more than the teachers. So everything information according to them is available in their phone, in their device hours. So what I did was I went to the device which they use. I went to the Google and categorized the blunders in them. errors in them, incompleteness in them, and set up a quiz game. I create a game. My game is not 20 minutes, it's a 2-hour game. The whole class is divided into teams, and one will be spot the devil, complete, something like that kind of stuff. Essentially, I realized they had not known that the difference between the right and wrong. Therefore, whatever they're thrown at them, they seem to think is right. And therefore, the role of a teacher now has changed. So the cognitive learning process has to now take into account of the tools that are available to them, which may assist you, at the same time may do the reverse of what you want to do. They may also teach you wrong things. Therefore, as leaders, educational leaders, I think any one of you to think about it, I differentiate administrator, lead, manager, and the leader. Administrator focuses the past and correct the errors of the past in the present, unconcerned about the future. Unfortunately, most of the time the policy speakers are only administrators. They are only correcting the past. Managers really correct the past, focus the present, and connect to future. Leaders learn from the past, but connect the present and focus on the future. All of you who are involved in the educational process, in very good foundations and schools, and you have a job of leader. Focus on the future. And the focusing on the future, of course, learn from the past. The past errors, this past tools, the executive processes. The tools that are becoming available have to be used as tools, not as masters. Unfortunately, many of these young people seem to think they're masters. Second thing is, they need a tremendous level of activity-based learning processes. The inclusiveness is essential in this category. Because I have said it publicly, that both India and the US are similar, both are country of immigrants. Therefore, the learner potentials of each individual person is different. And you cannot standardize them. But the tools available to you help you to help the slow learner in a positive manner. The inclusiveness in the education process that you're looking for, away from the Gurukul model, is essentially using those processes. I found that using this classroom lectures with this online was originally critical. Then later on I realized when a classroom is online, the students are able to ask questions because of anonymity. In the classroom they don't ask. When they are on this online model, they are hidden, they are covered. So ask questions. Therefore, even there is a value for all this. What I would like to leave a thought with you, the fusion of the East and the West in the education process. The models of the East, models of the Orient, the methodology of the Occident, which is to me the terms that are available. Eventually, interesting when a young lady was talking to you earlier, the joy of learning. Unfortunately, that's missing. The present educational system, what is important is the joy of learning and the joy of knowing. Therefore, we don't have to take one model and then say what's wrong with it. That's every model has some merit, every model has some defect. How do we synthesize? How do we bring them together? A teacher today has a toolbox. There are lots of toolboxes available. And for each child, you can bring about a correct model, correct synthesis in the process. And that's why the teacher is today. I think eventually inspiration. Inspiration is the name of the game. And I can tell you, without, I'll summarize it with an anecdote on my classroom teacher. I went to 21 schools in my 11 years of education. My father used to get transferred every 3-4 months. I went to 4 schools in class 7 and 4 schools in class 8. And it turned out I had, since I went to 21 schools, I had lots of teachers. I had good friends. I don't know childhood friends, but I had childhood teachers. There was a teacher by name Mrs. Apollo. I thought I would share it with you today. Mrs. Apollo was a teacher in Ramanathapuram. She was my history teacher, not class teacher. She was teaching me Industrial Revolution. I got up and asked what was the energy efficiency of James Watt's steam engine. She said, I don't know the answer, I'll tell you tomorrow. Next day, 4 o'clock, I went to the staff room. What happened? There is a science teacher also doesn't know the answer. Then she took me to the principal. The principal Raja, a maths teacher. He said 15%. How to get 15%? The road is 30 and you're hitting to 100 degrees, you're putting 70. Then you take a latent heat for conversion to steam. How to get 50%? Then you convert the steam into locomotion. I also don't know the answer. But she made that one teacher in Ramanathapuram High School go to American College in Madurai, work out a sheet for me 2 days later and give it back to me. That is inspiration. Okay? Inspired, not the inspiration of learning process. Therefore, when I went to Delhi, the previous program that I brought for science, I called Inspire as a scheme. Because I believe the future India can be built only through inspirational model. And you are not really unlike us, scientists. These scientists will mess up an experiment, is called the experiment. We do something wrong. But teachers, you are creating a generation. You are actually building a nation. Therefore, your faults will have a replicating effect. And unlike a scientist, you are different. Therefore, I've come here to speak to you about the role of inspiration in